right? Whose wife was Gomer? It was Hosea? I'm just trying to think of this. Okay, that's what that's all about. Gomer is a picture of Israel, and Hosea is a picture of God. And how she goes in all these whoredoms, and he keeps taking her back. And Israel is going to be taken back by God, but it's not going to happen until she repents. Psalm 19:6, his going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit into the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat, the Spirit, the heat thereof. It's amazing how the Bible just tells us these things, and if we're not careful, we can just read over them and not get what he's trying to tell us. Job 12:7, but ask now the beasts, and they shall what? The beasts are going to teach you? How are the beasts going to teach you? I'm going to give you some illustrations in a minute. How do beasts teach you anything? Well, I remember one time where a donkey spoke to one of God's prophets, Balaam, who didn't want to do what God wanted to. Actually, I believe he did speak. Okay, some people say, well, that's just an allegorical method. No, it says he spoke, I believe he spoke. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. And then he says, and the fowls of the air, and they shall what? I didn't know you could hear what birds were saying. I didn't know we could understand bird language, like in the library. You got to see the movie. Okay. Job 12 and verse 8. Or speak to the earth, and it shall teach thee. And the fish of the sea shall declare unto thee. Remember Don Knotts became a fish and he was talking. I think of that every time I read this verse. But the fish and the sea shall declare unto thee what God's purpose is. Oh my goodness. It's right here in the Bible. Who knoweth not in all these things that the hand of the Lord hath wrought this? There's a purpose he did this. He made a fish a certain way. He made donkeys a certain way. He made dogs a certain way. He made thunder for a certain reason. He made clouds. Why? To show us what God's purpose is all about. It's right there in nature and it's revealed in the Bible. Psalm 1:1-3, Mark 8 verse 24 says, men are likened to trees. Now these are just illustrations. And how that God teaches us what we're to be like using a tree. Okay? In Psalm 1 it says, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. You see the progression there? When we backslide, it goes from walking to standing to sitting. There's all these things in here that we got to pay attention to. Sin is a progression. I don't just go and sit in the seat of the scornful. I walk around it. I play with it. Then I start standing and paying attention to it. And then before you know, I'm sitting in among it. Like Lot literally became an officer in Sodom. Where at one time he pitched his tent toward Sodom. It's towards Sodom. He shouldn't have done that. And there's a progression getting into the city. So trees. What are trees going to teach us? But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree. Let's pay attention to what's going on here. Planted by the rivers of water. What's water a picture of in the Word of God? The Word of God. The water in the Bible is a picture of the Word of God. So, if we're going to be a tree that's strong, we're to be planted in the Word of God. That's the soil. That bringeth forth his fruit. We know John 15, his fruit is not only the 9 fruit of the Spirit, but our life spiritually impacting other people's lives. If I want my life to impact the life of someone else for eternity, I need to be a tree that's planted in the rivers of water in good soil so that my fruit can come forward. If you ever try to plant a tree and you don't plant it correctly and put it in the soil just right and keep it watered just right, the tree might grow, but there's no fruit. And that's what's happened to a lot of Christians. They're going to church and they're going through the motions and they're playing the game and they're doing everything that a successful Christian is supposed to do, but there's no fruit. And I had one good thing I learned in Bible college was I had a college professor that told us one time there's 2 ways you can tell the difference between a real tree and a fake tree. If it's a fake tree, it won't produce fruit. And if it's a fake tree, it won't die. Because a Christian's supposed to die to self all the time. And just like a corn of wheat, unless a corn of wheat falls to the ground and die, it cannot bear much fruit. John 12:24. If I want to produce fruit in my life, I have to die. And that tree has to go through a stage. You know, it's got all the green, and then it goes to the winter months, and it dies down, and then it comes to summer again. Same process we go through in our Christian lives. And his leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. So what he's telling you to do, we're like trees, and we're supposed to bear fruit. And if we're not bearing fruit, something's wrong. We're phony, or we're fake, or we're playing a game. And then in Mark 8:24, he says, and he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. That always interested me when the blind man could see and Jesus touched him. The first time he opened his eyes, he said, I see men as trees walking. And then Jesus touched him again, and he could see it normally. Some people say, well, God made a mistake when he did that. Well, what do you think really God's trying to teach us when that happened? What do you think the real teaching there is? Did God make a mistake? Did he heal him too good? Some people say that. Well, God healed him too good and had to back off a little bit. He didn't know his own power. Because the passage does say that. Touched him the first time, you see his tree. Well, what happened is, God's telling us we're to be like trees. And he's saying, go through the Bible and look at the tree principles. And that's what I want you to do. And we can miss these things if we're not seeing how God opens himself up through nature. And another way God uses nature is he uses dogs to describe lost men. In 2 Peter 2:22, but it has happened unto them according to the true proverb, the dog is turned to his own vomit again, and the sow that was washed till her wallowing in the mire. The sow, of course, is a pig. As a dog returneth to his vomit, so a fool returneth to his folly. For the dogs, in Psalm 22:16, for the dogs have compassed me, the unsaved, the lost people. The assembly of the wicked have enclosed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter into the gates into the city. For without are dogs, and sorcerers, and whoremongers, and murderers, and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. So, dogs, when you see them in the Bible, are compared to lost men. Remember, even in the New Testament, when Jesus said that the dogs eat the crumbs. That's the Gentiles. We were unsaved. But we were wanting what he was preaching, and the Jews were rejecting it. But when he called us dogs, he was calling us unsaved and people that are without the camp. Job 11:12 and Exodus 13:13 say that donkeys, or as the Bible calls them, asses, are likened unto lost men. For vain would be wise, though a man be born like a wild ass's colt. And in Exodus tells us, and every firstling of an ass thou shalt redeem with a lamb. I mean, it can't be any more clear that the donkey represents a lost man, and the lamb, of course, is Christ, and that's what redeems us. And if thou wilt not redeem it, then thou shalt break his neck. And if you do a word study on the neck in the Bible, and you do a word study on the neck, and it means rebellion. That's why the Leviathan's neck is so strong, because the Leviathan represents Satan.